In this unit, I will deal with a text that describes the period that Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, ruled in Mitzpah. As a matter of fact, I will deal with two texts, two nearly parallel texts. After understanding their source and time, we will use them in the next unit for the historical reconstruction. Well, the period that Gedaliah ruled in Mitzpah is described in the Old Testament in two versions. The brief version in the second book of Kings, chapter 25, verses 22 to 26, consisting of 5 verses, and the longer version in Jeremiah chapter 40, verse 7, and until chapter 41, verse 18, consisting of 28 verses. You can pause for a minute and read the two descriptions. I can wait. Did you notice the parallel parts and the clear connection between the two episodes? You can check and see that the second book of Kings, chapter 25, verses 23-24, is really matching Jeremiah 40, verses 7 to 9. You can check that the second book of Kings, chapter 25, verse 25, is parallel to Jeremiah, chapter 41, verses 1 to 3. And the second book of Kings, chapter 25, verse 26, is parallel to Jeremiah 41, verses 16 to 18. You can pause again. You can check it. I have time. The basic story in both versions is very simple and consists of two different stories around the figure of Gedaliah and the fate of the remnant of Judah, where the relationship between the two of them is not clear. The first one deals with the appointment of Gedaliah and his early activity in Mitzpah, and the second deals with the murder of Gedaliah and the flight of the remnant of the people to Egypt. From the beginning of research, scholars have investigated the linguistic and literary connection between the two versions and expressed different opinions regarding the date and the nature of the connection between the versions. Different opinions were also expressed regarding the purpose for which the two versions had been written in two different places, the time they were added, and the target audience for which they were aimed. I can think of 3 major approaches in scholarship as to the source of the description of Gedaliah's reign. Only few scholars assumed that the short version that was preserved in the second book of Kings is reliable and original, and preferable over that in Jeremiah that expanded it. Most scholars saw the version in the second book of Kings as later supplement that is not part of the story of the destruction of Jerusalem. This kind of appendix is foreign to the preceding chapter dealing with the destruction of Jerusalem, both linguistically and in literary style, but connected to the other appendix after him in the second book of Kings, chapter 25, verses 27 to 30, which describes the release of King Jehoiachin from his prison after 37 years, it means around 560 BCE. I also think that the 2 supplements at the end of the book of Kings were added to the account of the destruction in the mid-6th century BCE, certainly after 560, with the aim of demonstrating the need to accept Babylonian supremacy. Both present the benefits in following this policy. The continued presence of the nation in Judah under the rule of Gedaliah, and the release of Jehoiachin after 37 years of imprisonment. Scholars also emphasized the linguistic and thematic unity of the version in the book of Jeremiah, and this refutes the possibility that this version is the product of an expansion of the brief version that preserved in the second book of Kings. This formed the basis for the hypothesis commonly accepted in scholarship that the version preserved in Jeremiah is the original one and also served as the basis for the summary in the second book of Kings, chapter 25. The major problem with this viewpoint is that the literary characteristics of the account of Gedaliah are different from those in the biography of Jeremiah in the rest of chapter 37 to 42, describing what happened to the prophet before, during, and after the destruction of Jerusalem. The prophet himself is never mentioned in the story on Gedaliah, and none of his prophecies are incorporated into the account. This is the reason why I find the third theory, already well presented by scholars like De Boer, Kogan, Tadmor, Rofe, and others, as the preferable theory. According to this theory, the two versions in the second book of Kings and Jeremiah are based on one other, earlier source. The redactor of the biography of Jeremiah used the entire source or a fuller version of it, and the author of the later appendix in the book of Kings apparently adapted the same source and abridged it to just a few verses. It can be shown that he didn't use the same version as incorporated in the Jeremiah's biography, but an earlier and independent version of it, and in some cases probably preserved more original parts of it. Defining the description of the rule of Gedaliah as an independent source raises several questions. What was the original form of the description? Where was it written? Where was it preserved until its incorporation in Jeremiah's biography and within the supplement to the description of the destruction in the second book of Kings? Alexander Rofe defined this source as a chronicle of the kind written by royal scribes, which in this case recorded the events of the destruction of Judah. However, I can't accept this theory for three major reasons. It is difficult to hypothesize that the writing of chronistic accounts continued to be connected to the house of David after the status of this Davidic line in Judah was neutralized and the elite of the nation was sent into the exile. Besides, this source is not connected either thematically or linguistically to the description of the destruction of Jerusalem, and it doesn't deal with it. It focuses on the period immediately after the destruction, and it's highlighting its uniqueness and underscores its difference. I can add to it one more thing. Ideologically, this source presents a different point of view, one that is even opposed to that of the description of the destruction of Jerusalem in the book of Kings. The description of the days of Gedaliah is distinguished among the scriptures in the Bible for its marked anti-Davidic attitude. In my opinion, this source can be viewed as a story written with the purpose of articulating an idea. Those who remained in the land under the leadership of Gedaliah had excellent chances to rebuild life in Judah and put it on a firm footing. I can think of only one place where it was written, Mitzpah. I can think of one source for this story, the people who remained in the land. Gedaliah's leadership attracted a popular consensus among the remnant of Judah, including a willingness to pay the price for life under Babylonian rule. However, this chance at restoration vanished as a result of the assassination of Gedaliah by Ishmael, the son of Netaniah, from the Davidic family. This idea is expressed in the heading of the narrative that was probably better preserved in the second book of Kings. וישמעו כל שרי החיילים, המה ואנשיהם, כי הפקיד מלך בבל את גדליה. This idea is also expressed in the protagonists upon whom it focuses. Pay attention that in this story there are only 3 protagonists and all the rest is only part of the background. Gedaliah symbolizes those who were willing to accept Babylonian authority to ensure continued life in Judah. The army officers symbolize the remnant of the military force of the kingdom of Judah who chose to join the restoration process. Ishmael, son of Netaniah, is a descendant of the royal family and the protege of the king of Ammon, and he is responsible for stopping the process of restoration. The theme of restoration is conveyed mainly in the words of Gedaliah's oath. Life in the land under the Babylonians is possible if there is willingness to accept their authority. The key sentence appears almost unchanged in both versions, in the second book of Kings, chapter 25, verse 24, and Jeremiah chapter 40, verse 9. אל תראו מעבוד הכסדים, שבו בארץ ועבדו את מלך בבל. Or maybe better, according to Kings, אל תראו מעבדי הכסדים, שבו בארץ ועבדו את מלך בבל. Do not be afraid of the Chaldean officials, or do not afraid from the Chaldeans. Dwell in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and it shall be well with you. It seems that this reflects very well the reality in Judah immediately after the destruction of Jerusalem. We know that Babylonian officials were stationed at Mitzpah, and the fear from the Babylonians was the main obstacle in the attempts to stabilize the situation. In my opinion, it is very likely that a story of this kind was written close to the time these events took place, and most of it is based on first-hand observation. My assumption is based on the details that appear in the story, on the sympathy expressed for Gedaliah and the idea of restoration that he represented, as well as on the deep disappointment from his murder and on the hostility to the murderer and his sender.